Most security systems react after a break-in begins. That's too late. Simply Safe is different. It's proactive. ActiveGuard Outdoor Protection uses AI-powered cameras to spot suspicious activity before criminals get inside. Live monitoring agents can see, speak to, and scare off intruders in real time, quickly calling police if needed. To get 60% off your new system, go to simplysafe.com/podcast. That's simplysafe.com/podcast for 60% off. There's no safe like Simply Safe.
Hey, I'm Jamie East, and today's episode of The Smart 7 is brought to you by Sainsbury's, where you can save big on festive favourites with Nectar prices. As the nights get cold and with Christmas round the corner, it's more important than ever to find value for money on your festive shop. And this Christmas, Sainsbury's have great discounts to make your festive season truly magical. But you don't have to wait until Christmas to start roast season. For example, this week, you can get a Buy Sainsbury's whole leg of lamb for half price with Nectar prices. You can shop in-store or online and save big on festive favourites this Christmas with Nectar prices at Sainsbury's. That's good food for all of us. This offer's for 18 plus, terms and conditions apply. Buy Sainsbury's whole leg of lamb offer ends 18th November. Nectar required. Available in-store and online, excluding locals. Delivery fees may apply, subject to availability.
It's Saturday the 15th of November. I'm Ciara Evans, and this was a week that saw the BBC in crisis. Number 10 struggled with a potential leadership challenge, the US government reopen, and good news for Severance fans.
Grab a cup of something hot, put up your feet, and get up to speed on the 7 biggest stories of the week. This is the Standout 7 from the Smart 7.
It's news,
but not the news.
Last Sunday night saw the BBC's Director General Tim Davie and the corporation's head of news Deborah Turness both resign. It came after the BBC found itself involved in an ongoing battle with former independent editorial standards advisor Michael Prescott. He made a series of allegations about editorial breaches at the BBC after he left his role this summer. One of the most serious allegations was of misleading editing of a Trump speech on January 6th, which made up part of a Panorama documentary, and BBC Chair Samir Shah was expected to apologise for it on Monday. Former BBC television director Danny Cohen says it was a serious lapse.
It's an opportunity to ask some hard questions about what's been going wrong, to not be defensive, to acknowledge that there is a significant problem. And once you acknowledge there's a problem, you can really begin to deal with it.
The resignations attracted the attention of Donald Trump, who tweeted about very dishonest people who tried to step on the scales of a presidential election, with his press secretary Caroline Leavitt describing the BBC as 100% fake news. Earlier, Culture Secretary Lisa Nandy had defended BBC bosses as Tory leader Kemi Badenoch had called for heads to roll, and now the BBC has lost 2 key leaders at a crucial time. Speaking to Times Radio last month, Davie had defended BBC errors and its overall impartiality.
You know, look, we're not perfect. We make mistakes. And often in this world, people say, "Oh, look, that mistake shows you're this or that." It doesn't often. It's if you like an honest mistake. You put these things right. You keep navigating the course. You've just got to hold your standard.
Monday was a pretty chaotic day for the BBC after the shock resignations of both Director General Tim Davie and the BBC News CEO Deborah Turness. Donald Trump weighed in with a threat of $1 billion lawsuit. He said unless the BBC retracts the Panorama programme, which inaccurately edited his January 6th speech, and apologise, he'll file a claim for damages. Monday also saw BBC Chairman Samir Shah submit a written statement to Parliament apologising for an error of judgment over the Panorama programme. Former DG Tim Davie was due to address all staff on a BBC internal call on Tuesday, but outgoing News CEO Turness was happy to defend the BBC's reputation.
I'd like to make one thing very clear. BBC News is not institutionally biased. That's why it's the world's most trusted news provider.
Nigel Farage was quick to weigh in on the controversy, warning that the BBC should get back to doing news and admitting that he's spoken to Trump about the issue. Lib Dem leader Sir Ed Davey was unimpressed.
The fact that Nigel Farage is basically teaming up with President Trump to criticise the BBC is shocking. It's unpatriotic, and it shows that he wants Trump's America coming to the UK.
Tuesday saw outgoing Director General of the BBC Tim Davie make his final address to staff at the organisation. Davie took the unusual step of urging staff to fight for the organisation even as he stepped down from it.
We have to be very clear and stand up for our journalism. We are a unique and precious organisation. And I see the free press under pressure. I see the weaponisation. I think we've got to fight for our journalism.
Donald Trump's threats of $1 billion lawsuit have escalated tensions, even though the Panorama documentary in question, which misedited his January 6th speech, was even available on the iPlayer in the US. The BBC responded to Donald Trump's $1 billion lawsuit threat on Thursday night. They offered an apology over the editing of his January 6th speech in the Panorama programme and promised not to show the episode again. But they rejected his claim for damages, saying, "We strongly disagree that there is a basis for a defamation claim. Whether that satisfies the US president is another question, and he's proven to be adept at extracting financial settlements from media organisations." Culture Secretary Lisa Nandy has defended the BBC and criticised both Nigel Farage and Kemi Badenoch for calling the BBC institutionally biased, but she also said she has no power to remove former Tory spin doctor Robbie Gibb from the organisation's board.
The BBC is not just a broadcaster. It is a national institution that belongs to us all. Every day it tells the story of who we are, the people, places and communities that make up life across the UK.
The US government finally got back to business this week after a record-breaking shutdown that lasted more than 40 days. The Trump administration seemed intent on causing maximum pain during the shutdown, going as far as the Supreme Court to stop payments to those on food stamps for November as part of the SNAP program. The court granted a temporary injunction to hold the payout to 42 million of the poorest Americans as the Trump administration digs its heels in. Democrat Senator Adam Schiff says he can't understand what Donald is playing at.
They're appealing to the Supreme Court for the right to cut off food from people. Who does that? Who works so hard? Who goes all the way through the court system to cut food from people who need it right now? But that's where they're coming from. The cruelty is part of the policy.
In the end, 7 Senate Democrats and an independent voted with Republicans for a bill which will see funding released until January. The majority of Democrats were horrified that Republicans and Donald Trump appear to have snatched victory from the jaws of defeat. And Trump was celebrating on social media, promising bonuses to air traffic controllers and calling the shutdown another Democratic hoax. He also chose Monday to pardon Rudy Giuliani and others involved in his attempts to overturn the 2020 election. Democrats in Congress were furious with serious questions over Senator Chuck Schumer's ability as minority leader, and Democrat leader in the House, Hakeem Jeffries, says the fight isn't over.
We can't let a handful of random senators sort of take us off track as it relates to the fight that we're waging. We have to continue to stay the course, to push back against their extremism. A
small group of Democrat senators who agreed to end the standoff on Sunday night were promised a Senate vote on their healthcare demands. Republicans still don't seem to have a healthcare plan, with Donald Trump promising to give Americans the money to spend themselves. But that's not seen as either a serious or practical suggestion. Senator Bernie Sanders thinks Democrats should have held the line for longer because the vote they've been promised is worthless.
Speaker Johnson has made it very clear that he's not going to entertain it. Trump would never sign it. So it is an empty gesture, and that bothers me. It bothers me that people want to raise false hopes. Oh, we're going to bring forth an amendment. That amendment ain't going to go anyplace.
Wednesday finally saw the US government officially reopen after a vote on a funding bill in Congress, which was then signed by Donald Trump at the White House. Even after the longest government shutdown in US history, it wasn't the main headline, however, as new emails released by Democrats put Donald Trump's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein back in the spotlight. The emails suggested that Trump once spent hours at a house with one of Jeffrey Epstein's victims, something that Trump denounced as part of a Democratic deflection. In response, Republicans released another 23,000 Epstein documents, hoping to wash away bad news in a flood of paper. Meanwhile, with Donald Trump refusing to participate in the annual COP30 climate summit, California Governor Gavin Newsom continued his trolling of the president by attending instead.
I'm here in the absence of leadership from Donald Trump, who's abdicated responsibility on a critical issue. I'm here because I think it's more than electric power, it's about economic power, and I'm not going to cede America's economic leadership to China.
As the week rolled on, there was no sign of interest in the Epstein files fading away, with journalists combing through a new trove of 20,000 emails that detail Epstein's relationship with Trump, but haven't as yet contained a smoking gun. Katie Bowles is Washington editor and columnist for The Times and Sunday Times, and she says Republicans have attempted to flood the zone.
It's not a coincidence that they have released specific things. However, what information comes out, there is a question as to, is the information new, is it damaging, and does it change the story for the president and others?
Last week saw Chancellor Rachel Reeves warn that income tax rises are not off the table when it comes to the budget in 2 weeks' time. She would be breaking a manifesto pledge, but the government is also determined to fund public services, including the NHS, and get it back to full health. They've also committed to tackling childhood poverty, and speaking to 5 Live on Monday, the Chancellor gave her strongest hint yet that the budget may see the lifting of 2 child benefit caps, a move which would please Labour backbenchers.
The social costs and the personal costs are most important, but I don't think we can lose sight as well of the costs to our economy in allowing child poverty to go unchecked. A child should not be penalised because their parents don't have very much money.
Justice Secretary and Deputy Prime Minister David Lammy was back in the spotlight on Tuesday after it emerged that yet more prisoners had been released in error. He says up to 91 prisoners have been incorrectly freed since April, and at least 4 of those remain at large, including one who was released last Monday. He continued to blame the previous Tory government for the chaos in the prison system.
It is symptomatic of the data issues we inherited that all this information I have been given at this time while police and HMPPS investigate.
Tory Shadow Justice Secretary Robert Jenrick was keen to put the boot in, saying the public are endangered as this circus rumbles on.
They're Lammy's lags, a whole new category of criminal who can just waltz out of prison despite having the strongest ever checks introduced by this Justice Secretary.
The Prime Minister found himself in hot water over football on Wednesday, specifically about his approval of the appointment of the new football regulator, David Cogan. Cogan had previously donated to Starmer's campaign, and the PM had agreed to rescue himself from the appointment process, given his love of football and experience of football hospitality. The PM apologised both to his independent ethics advisor and to Culture Secretary Lisa Nandy for creating an awkward situation. This isn't the only awkward Starmer-related situation, however, as Downing Street has been battling to damp down suggestions that a leadership challenge against the PM is underway. Wes Streeting is the most likely to make a challenge, according to Number 10, but the Health Secretary was going all out to deny any knowledge of it when he spoke to Sky News.
Nor did I shoot JFK. I don't know where Lord Lucan is. Had nothing to do with Shergar. And I do think that the US did manage to do the moon landings. I don't think they were faked.
The aggressive response backfired on Starmer's Chief of Staff, Morgan McSweeney, and Tory Shadow Justice Secretary Robert Jenrick says the whole thing is a shambles.
I mean, I don't really care, to be honest, about the internal politics of the Labour Party. I don't think most people do in the country. What they want this morning is to know the government is getting on and actually doing things to fix the country.
Prime Minister Question Time saw plenty of interest in not just the potential Labour leadership battle, but also what might or might not be in the impending budget. Tory leader Kemi Badenoch was on the attack over the state of the economy and the new records that showed unemployment at 5%, something that didn't go down well with the PM.
Of course I accept we need to do more in relation to unemployment. That's why we're transforming job centres, which they opposed. I would also remind the Leader of the Opposition, Mr Speaker, that the average unemployment in the 14 years of her government was 5.4% higher than the rate today.
The Lib Dems are keen to propose some ideas of their own to boost the economy, which include reducing energy bills and cutting VAT rates for pubs to encourage people to support the hospitality industry. Deputy Leader Daisy Cooper says the root of the problem is the B word.
Brexit has been a disaster for this country. 2 billion pieces of paper have had to be completed by British businesses since the Brexit deal. If we could scrap that red tape, we could get serious about growth.
There was no good news for the Chancellor on Thursday, as the latest figures showed that growth in the economy between July and September slowed to a crawl. With an official growth rate of only 0.1%, it will make it even harder for the Chancellor to balance the books when it comes to the budget without resorting to tax rises. Between weak job numbers and slow consumer spending, Tory Shadow Chancellor Mel Stride says it's not a pretty picture.
This is because of the choices that this Chancellor has decided to take. if you load up taxes on businesses, you destroy growth. If you borrow and spend lots of money and stoke inflation, which you destroy growth too.
Last weekend saw Russia hammer Ukraine with more airstrikes targeting their energy infrastructure as winter draws in. The attacks killed at least 7 people and reduced Ukraine's energy generating capacity to zero, according to the state energy operator, as urgent repairs got underway. Ukrainian President Zelensky has revealed that King Charles intervened on Ukraine's behalf with Donald Trump and managed to help normalise relations with the US president. It was one of a number of revelations in a Guardian interview with the Ukrainian leader, which was videoed but had to be paused twice as the power went out in Kyiv. Despite more air defences, it looks like being a long, difficult winter, and Zelensky was keen to emphasise the threat that Russia also poses to Europe.
These are all tests. Tests of Europe, tests of what they are capable of, testing how America will react to the threat of undermining European countries, as well as NATO.
Russia has been consistently targeting Ukraine's energy infrastructure over the last few weeks, causing blackouts across the country. But the energy industry has also been in the spotlight this week over allegations of corruption at the highest level. This week saw Ukraine's energy and justice ministers implicated in an investigation into corrupt payments worth about $100 million. The investigation alleges senior government figures collected kickbacks from construction contractors. The evidence included photos of bags of laundered cash, and the scandal involved former associates of President Zelensky. He spoke to German Chancellor Friedrich Merz about the scandal on Thursday and says those responsible need to answer for their crimes.
First of all, there should be maximum transparency in the energy sector and in all processes. I support every investigation by law enforcement. I believe that the Minister of Justice and the Minister of Energy cannot remain in their positions.
Still to come in the Standout 7 in association with Metro. Keir Starmer goes nuclear and Ben Stiller has good news for Severance fans.
Right after this.
Hey, I'm Jamie East, and today's episode of the Smart 7 is brought to you by Sainsbury's, where you can save big on festive favourites with nectar prices. As the nights get cold and with Christmas round the corner, it's more important than ever to find value for money on your festive shop. And this Christmas, Sainsbury's have great discounts to make your festive season truly magical. But you don't have to wait until Christmas to start roast season. For example, this week, you can get a Buy Sainsbury's whole leg of lamb for half price with nectar prices. You can shop in-store or online and save big on festive favourites this Christmas with nectar prices at Sainsbury's. That's good food for all of us. This offer's for 18 plus, terms and conditions apply. Buy Sainsbury's whole leg of lamb offer ends 18th November. Nectar required. Available in-store and online, excluding locals. Delivery fees may apply, subject to availability.
You've worked hard to build your business. SimpliSafe helps you protect it. With SimpliSafe for Business, AI-powered cameras watch over your entry points and instantly alert live monitoring agents. They can deter intruders before they get inside. It's protection built for growing companies. 24/7 monitoring, no contracts, and a 60-day money-back guarantee. To get 60% off your new system, go to simplysafe.com/podcast. That's simplysafe.com/podcast for 60% off. There's no safe like SimpliSafe.
Welcome back.
Friday saw resident doctors hit the picket lines for a 5-day strike. The action came despite an offer last week to the British Medical Association from Health Secretary Wes Streeting. He proposed more specialist training spaces for early career doctors and even offered to pay exam fees and membership fees for medical associations, but he refused to increase their pay above the increments already awarded. That didn't please the BMA and the strikes are now underway. Daniel Elkels is the chief executive of the NHS providers, and he says it's a shame that as the NHS makes progress, patients will once again miss appointments.
So the NHS needs all of its workforce at work. When the NHS is going to go for broke this time and say 95% of patients will get cared for, that's still thousands of patients whose care is going to be postponed.
The strike, which started on Friday, is due to last for 5 days, and Dr Emma Brunswick says the central issue remains the long-term erosion of doctors' pay under the Tory government.
We had really lost a huge amount of pay. Real terms pay cuts have happened through pay freezes. The fact that we are still a fifth less well off than we were in 2008, I think is a damning indictment of the way that many governments have treated public sector workers.
Prime Minister Keir Starmer may have been quite happy to head off to North Wales on Thursday, escaping from the tense atmosphere of number 10 Downing Street after this week's panicky attempt to shut down a potential leadership challenge. The PM was in Wales to announce that Welfa on the island of Anglesey will host 3 new small modular reactors which will be built by Rolls-Royce. The government will invest £2.5 billion in the relatively new clean technology, which could create thousands of jobs.
This is going to be next generation nuclear. So it's really exciting, the first of its type here in North Wales. And we're going to sign the contract this year and the work is going to start next year.
The US government apparently isn't happy. They have been pushing for the US firm Westinghouse to get the contract. But Rolls-Royce have been busy innovating with nuclear technology, and the opportunity to use British technology clearly had strong appeal. Energy Secretary Ed Miliband says clean nuclear power could be a game changer.
What you see across the world is countries racing for these new reactors. We're ahead actually in Europe with Rolls-Royce, so it's going to be a British company. It's happening because we chose to invest to get this project off the ground.
Ben Stiller is nothing if not versatile. From his signature blue steel-looking Zoolander to comedies like Meet the Fockers and There's Something About Mary, he's got plenty of hits as an actor. He's turned his attention to documentaries now, making a new Apple TV show called Stiller and Mira. Nothing is Lost. It tells the story of his own parents who are both successful Hollywood stars. He popped up with Jimmy Fallon to discuss the film and also dropped some good news about season 3 for fans of his show Severance.
It's coming. It's tough because people do love the show. People love the show, and then they're always like, when is the next season? When's the next season? Yes. And it's always, we're working on it. But we've only done 19 episodes over 5.5 years.
You've been listening to The Smart 7. We'll be back tomorrow at 7 a.m. Hit that follow button and have a great day. Give us 7 minutes, we'll give you the world. Hey, I'm Jamie East, and today's episode of The Smart 7 is sponsored by Vodafone Business in partnership with Samsung. When you're running your own business, pretty much anywhere can be your office, the spare room, the back garden, or, like here, the local cafe. With the power of Vodafone Business's reliable award-winning network, combined with the Samsung Galaxy S25, there's no limit to what you can do pretty much anywhere. And over the next few weeks, we're going to answer some of the questions you might have about how best to unlock the power of AI in your business. For example,
what are the risks for my business if I decide not to engage with AI?
If you choose not to engage with AI in your business, there's a risk you'll fall behind your competitors who are using it to become faster, cheaper and more efficient. You'll definitely miss out on the chance to provide a more personalised service for customers, and you're not going to benefit from insights and innovation which could make your company appear outdated for both staff and customers. And without Galaxy AI, you'll miss out on a host of tools to make business life easier. Getting back to the Samsung Galaxy S25, to take advantage of the Galaxy AI features and change the way you do business, you'll need a Samsung account and a network connection. To find out more, search Vodafone Business Samsung, and for network verification, go to vodafone.co.uk/network.
AI is transforming customer service. It's real and it works. And with Finn, we've built the #1 AI agent for customer service. We're seeing lots of cases where it's solving up to 90% of real queries for real businesses. This includes the real-world complex stuff like issuing a refund or cancelling an order. And we also see it when Finn goes up against competitors. It's top of all the performance benchmarks, top of the G2 leaderboard, and if you're not happy, we'll refund you up to $1 million, which I think says it all. Check it out for yourself at fin.ai.